Content warning: the stories and themes shared throughout this podcast may contain themes that can be distressing for you. If needed, please pause and do what you need to do to take care of yourself. If needed, please reach out to a mental health professional for support.
Welcome back to another episode of Resilient AF with Blair and Alana. But there's no Alana today, so let's tag in Charley Sky. She is probably one of the most impressive teenagers I have ever met. She's an author, and I'm so honored to have her here today. So, as a teen author, Charley Sky focuses on guiding young people through the complexities of relationships and love, offering a fresh perspective rooted in lived experience. She is dedicated to empowering others to understand themselves, which is such an important relationship. Raised in LA, Charley Sky, also known as Sky, is now a junior at a New England boarding school, a highly impactful activist for organizations for homeless youth, so like Ignite Food Project in Bali or YAC, and she's fluent in Mandarin Chinese. She is super passionate about strengthening human connection and fostering conscious and expansive connections through her writing, visual arts, poetry, and way of living. So impressive. Sky, how's it going?
Hi, Blair. It's great. I'm super nervous, but really excited to be here and talk a little bit more about what I've been working on. So thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
And you know what? Honestly, like it's okay to be real human, right? And I think your book touches on that because your book is this love is coming out. By the time this podcast airs, it might even be out. Like you wrote and published a book and you're not even out of high school yet. That's so impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, it definitely took a lot of work, a lot of weekends, not doing what everyone else was doing, but I really feel like it's worth it. And that I hope that the things that I've written are helpful to a lot of people.
Like I know your book is targeted towards teenagers and we're going to dive into it, but I really think it's applicable to anyone.
And that's the hope. I think, I mean, they're all my reflections from my lived experiences and from things I've heard from other people. And the feeling of love does not change at any age. We're all experiencing it. And so I definitely think my book can be helpful to anyone.
I love it. So why don't we just start at the beginning? Is this love? What inspired you to write a book?
A lot of my life has been focused on relationships. I grew up in a multi-faith church, so empathy and looking for other people's perspectives was really important to us all getting along, honestly. I grew up with divorcing parents, so I was very aware of the fact that relationships were pretty complicated. When I started having my own, I realized how a lot of the experiences of my younger life were coming out in that relationship. And I became very aware of how our own childhood experiences come up in all parts of our life. So then I started talking to my friends about what they were going through. And I kind of realized we were all confused about most of the same things and all struggling with the same things and all excited about the same things. And because of what I had gone through, I had some insight on that, which ended up being pretty helpful for the people around me. So I thought that I might as well start writing it down.
I love that. So it's almost like you became this like relationship guru to your peers just from your like wisdom. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know you, and like you are so wise beyond your years. So I think it's what a gift to your friends to have these insights and for you to share them, and then them being impacted by your guidance.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I honestly wouldn't have gotten the book done without my friends. There's been so much motivation from everyone in my life, and getting to hear everyone's perspectives and really have this constant reminder that I'm not alone in the process of writing this book, but also just in relationships has been so helpful. I'm really grateful for the community that I have.
Yeah, that's really special. Okay, so you write these insights down after you're sharing them with your friends. How did it go from like writing them down and documenting them to you being like, I'm going to publish a book?
That is a great question. And I honestly don't always know how I got here either. Um, I had written down sort of I guess you could call it like a thesis on relationships. And I shared it with a licensed relationship therapist that I knew. And she thought that I took it off of Google, which I thought was really funny. But I told her it was my own writing, and she kind of showed me how she helped other people. And based off of what she knew, it helped me structure my thoughts in a more coherent way. So, because of her guidance, I was able to write it down in a way that was more helpful for people in all sorts of scenarios rather than just one of my girlfriends coming to me and telling her about her boy problems. But I mean, the book, it's supposed to feel like a friend, you know. Obviously, no book we read, we remember everything, but it's someone or something that you can go back to when things get a little bit too confusing in your life. So that's my long-winded answer.
No, that's the perfect answer. And I think that's like really insightful. I love that you said like the book is meant to be like a friend, right? You know, like how I hear parents say, like, there's no textbook on parenting, like, there's no textbook on love. But it sounds like you've gathered this wisdom and shared it. And yes, I think there's not no one right or wrong way to do things in a relationship, but you're sharing this advice and it's helping people. So it's definitely something to add to the toolkit. You know, this book that can be your friend, you know, throw it in your bag or buy the ebook, have it on your phone. So when you're going through one of the stages of a relationship, you have access to a tool.
Definitely. And obviously, I'm aware that I'm pretty young. And one of my personal goals for myself is to look back at the book in 10 years and want to rewrite it because I've learned so many more things. But I think that I'm able to kind of feel the confusion and the drama and the chaos that we're all feeling at my age and put a foot out and look back in. So I think that's why the book is so special, you know, because it can be really hard for us to talk to our parents or counselors who feel a little disconnected from our lives. So I feel like because I'm the same age as my peers, it makes it a lot easier to engage in this comfortable conversation about a lot of confusing feelings in our life.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. So the book is called Is This Love? And I would love to know how you, Sky, defines what love is. Like, what is love?
Definitely. Um, I think a common misconception is that people my age don't know what love is, which I definitely don't think is true. It is absolutely hard to define love, and it's hard to make that something that is clearly tangible. But to me, it's just this feeling that you know is there, that you can't quite explain, but you know it's not going to go anywhere. It's a very it's a very secure feeling, not that it is always comfortable, but that it's something that you know is really authentic. So I think when you feel love, you don't really have to explain it to yourself immediately because it's just something that's kind of in the air that you know is not going to leave you.
That's really beautiful. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking like, you know, throughout my life, I'm a little bit older than you know, because I have love for my parents, and that might be different than the love I have for my husband or the love that I have for my sister or my pets to a friend. Like, love is such a spectrum. And do you believe that, like, the feeling of knowing that you love your parents is different than like falling in love with someone? Like, there's in love and loving. Like, is there a difference?
Yes, I would say so. I think love and being in love can be different for relationships, but I think the core feeling of love is the same for everyone in our lives. It definitely manifests in different forms. Obviously, we have love that brings us to intimate relationships. We have love with our friends and loves with our family, but it's all the same core feeling. And I think it all deserves the same level of attention and the same level of understanding, which is why I wrote the book, because we all feel love, but it can be really hard to know how to love and how to be loved, how to receive that very intense feeling that we can't quite get rid of, but we definitely know is there.
I think that's a brilliant answer, and it's true. And it's interesting because I find like in my life, different people bring out different types of love, right? And it's not a linear answer, right? It's ebbs and flows. You know, your book has, you're writing it off of lived experience and reflections. Do you have any specific stories you want to share that inspired parts of your book? Take us a little behind the scenes, maybe?
Whew, that's definitely a hard question because there's so many things that built that book. I think for me, the main experience, like the core of it, that really got me going was I was in my first long-term committed relationship, and I definitely think we had love, and I definitely loved that person, but it was very intense to the point where we were both very stressed all the time. And I think at first I thought that was what love
Mm.
was intensity. But as I started to experience more with this person and reflect on how the rest of my life had played out, I sort of realized that I was just kind of looking to fill gaps with this other person in my life, and that this intensity was just this very unhealthy manifestation of our love. Um, yeah.
How did
Yeah,
you know that? Like, how did you come to that realization that like this isn't healthy? Like, because some people do think that intensity, that sometimes they mix like passion and fire for like there's like a fine line of passion and fire and like too intense, right? Like, how did you come to that conclusion that, whoa, like this is not where I should be?
I have to think about that. It's hard to put into words because it was sort of subtle for me.
Hmm.
It wasn't really like I woke up one day and realized that this wasn't what was supposed to be happening.
Well, that's okay. That can be the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it just became clear to me over time that the same habits I was repeating with this person were just a different version of the habits that I had with my family that were not super healthy for me. So
Hmm.
I guess I started recognizing the patterns.
It's so brilliant that you have this awareness in high school because I'm just going to get real vulnerable here. And you know a little bit about my story, but I had a father who lived with a drug addiction, and I didn't know I was doing this until hindsight, but I was actually dating the men I was dating before I met my husband. Not all of them, but a lot of them had very toxic, similar behaviors. And my last relationship before Shane was so bad that like I ended up having to leave an abusive relationship, and that really caused me to reflect and go to therapy. That's actually how I started going to therapy. And I was like, we're just so used to doing what's comfortable or what we know, and it
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's right. And my example is very extreme, but I was like, whoa, because my dad wasn't abusive or anything. My dad just had it, not just. My dad had an addiction, not just an addiction. Let's be very clear. Addiction is not a just thing. It's a thing. But I was just in this like pattern, even though I knew it wasn't good. Sometimes it's not a moment that hits you that's clarity, it slowly builds. And the fact
Yeah,
that you recognize this in high school, whew, if I had this awareness in high school, I mean, so many things would have changed in my life.
sure. I honestly, I know these things and I still make so many mistakes. But it's really kind of funny that you said that because the other day, one of my friends asked me while we were walking to one of our courses, and he asked me, I just don't understand why people stay in relationships that are bad for them. Like, I just can't understand it. And the way that I explained it back to him was that when you're in a really toxic relationship, as difficult as it can be, especially when you're young, you haven't experienced enough and know enough about yourself to know that you deserve better, honestly. And not even just that, but that love doesn't really look like that, which
Hmm.
was a really hard realization for my first relationship because it's really comfortable to be with someone who's not great for you, even though it's very stressful and all the time. You know, it's reliably stressful feeling,
Yeah. And I think also, and this is maybe something we can talk about. We're so inundated. Like high school was different for me than you because I went to high school 100 years ago. We didn't have social media, but we still had Hollywood. We had like all the movies. We had Clueless and like all these like classics and TV shows that showed us like, like Full House, like what should love be, seeing all the, DJ Tanner dating Steve. You probably, I don't even know if you know what I'm talking about, but some people listening might. But you see all these relationships modeled, and there's such a variety. And then you have what's familiar in your home. And I think like now with social media, there's that whole other element where people are only posting like these moments in time to paint a picture, but it's not necessarily the truth. Like how do you navigate all that? How do you not let other people's or Hollywood's portrayal of a relationship impact you?
I think there's two sides to social media. On one side, it's really helpful to see people similar to you thinking the same things. It is an extension of a community, and it especially became that over the pandemic for a lot of young people.
Hmm.
But the side which a lot of us, I think, forget is that it's still a business. Social media is a business. And the things that people are posting are intended to grab your attention. It is intended to be clickbait so that you will focus there. So there's a lot of misinformation about relationships, especially a lot of people or influencers telling you to not treat your partner very well because they were emotional about something. And that grabs your attention, especially when you're feeling angry or sad at something your partner did. But it's so easy to get lost in that and forget to pull yourself out of the situation and try to look at all sides. So, on one hand, I think social media is great because you can feel so close to so many people you don't really know. But if you don't remember that it is an app, it does have an intention to get your attention. It it no longer becomes a healthy tool that you should rely on. I definitely think it is difficult to not get super swept into it, just like it was when they were
Hmm.
other TV shows or people that you see in Hollywood doing something because those are the only people that you can idolize in your life,
Right.
you know? So I think it's just a new version of that. And just like managing that, you have to keep yourself in your own reality and realize that there are so many other things going on than just the one perspective you see on social media.
Yes. Oh, so wise. And like what I also love about that, and you just said something, your own reality. Like, hey, people out there, we actually can control what our reality is,
Yeah.
right? And I think like a big indicator is like I didn't realize for 39 years I was living in fight or flight. Like my nervous system was so wound up. So chaos was comfortable. But once I
Yeah.
started to relax my nervous system and heal trauma, I learned like what behaviors, what relationships in my life were toxic.
Yeah.
Right? And like, you know, if it's like a calm feeling, that's good. If it's not a calm feeling and there's anxiety and anger and like that lust, not lust, but like, you said before about like the intensity, like really ask yourself, is this serving you or hurting you?
Yeah. And I think coming out of that is so empowering. But when you're in it, and especially when you're my age, and I don't live with my family because I'm out of boarding academy, but when you do live with your family, the only relationship you see on a consistent basis is your parents. So you can become pretty disempowered because all you see is the same pattern in your own life. And you don't really realize it, but you start looking for relationships that model whatever it is you're seeing every day,
Hmm.
because why would you look for anything else? It's very unfamiliar. You have no way to really see it. I think a lot of times we forget that our lives are in our control before we realize that they are, you know.
Hmm. I love that. That's so beautiful. So as we wrap up this interview, the theme of our podcast is resilience, and I think relationships is a huge part of resilience. In fact, recently we've analyzed the data, so we've collect stories of resilience where people share what their challenges, their story, how they overcame it, and there's a huge sense of community community, like finding community, getting help, not going through it alone. And so I think this just ties in so beautifully because this is not just applicable to romantic relationships. I think it's all relationships, starting with yourself. And we need this tool, this relationship with ourselves and others to be more resilient.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. Community is the most important thing. It's so easy when you're in a relationship, especially an unhealthy one, to forget that you have so many other people around you that are there for you, and you have so many other identities. I talk about this in my book a lot, but it's so key to remember that you're not just a partner or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, that you're a peer and a daughter or a mother or a father or a teammate or a coworker. And all of those things are just as important. So it's fantastic to hear that so many people are starting to talk about this.
Oh, so good. So if people are like, whoa, Sky, you're super cool. How do I learn more about you? Do you have a website? Where can people buy your book?
Definitely. Everything is centered on my website right now, which is sky at charleysky.com and Ley for Charlie.
Yeah, I love that. And we're going to put the link to her website in the show notes and the link to buy her book. Support her. Like, she's in high school. I've written 4 books. One of them is my own book, and the rest are anthologies. It is so much work to write a book. Like, it is so impressive that you did this. So let's support her. Leave a review on Amazon. Tell your friends about this. If you have kids, you have teenagers, you're the cool auntie and your friends have kids, anyone in your life who are parents struggling with teenagers and relationships, this is the perfect gift for them. This is the perfect tool for them. This is like next generation relationship, like consulting essentially. So I'm so proud of you and thank you so much for joining us on Resilient AF.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is so good. And thank you to everyone who tuned in to another episode of Resilient AF with Blair and Alana. But no Alana, but Sky came. Sky's here. And, just remember, you don't have to go through life alone. You don't have to go through the challenges alone. It's okay to not be okay. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Know that we are that lighthouse in the storm. There are people and resources out there, like Is This Love, to help you through those challenging moments. And remember, you are resilient AF. That's a wrap for another episode of Resilient AF with Blair and Alana. And thank you for listening. Are you feeling inspired to bounce forward?
Let's connect at theglobalresilienceproject.com, where you can read many stories of resilience, buy our books, shop our clothing line, learn more about how to strengthen your resilience muscle, be empowered, and more.
Remember, friends, you are resilient AF.